So the Packers committed to David Bakhtiari as their first large free agent signing in season to take care of the 2021 class. Obviously, earlier in the year, they made the commitment to Kenny Clark, signing him to a 4-year, $70 million extension. And by doing so with both, they have two players currently that will be under contract through 2024. Truly the building blocks of the team as they move forward. So when you think about what this commitment does, right, is it obviously draws a line in the sand to say, of the free agents, Kevin King, Corey Linsley, David Bakhtiari, Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, we've talked about the list consistently. Bakhtiari was the focus, was the person that you can't argue was the hometown savings guy or whatever. He was the focus, and he was the focus at market value, now eclipsing Laramie Tunsil, who was the highest paid offensive lineman, as that honor, the highest paid offensive lineman in the history of football. So when some people saw Ronnie Stanley's contract with the Ravens a week or so ago, I thought maybe that would set the benchmark. Maybe, with Bakhtiari being, 29 years old, and maybe the 18 million, 17 million that you're seeing with Lane Johnson, Ronnie Stanley, especially with Stanley being a younger player, maybe that's what Bakhtiari would accept. But Bakhtiari was very clear from day one that he wanted to be where Laramie Tunsil was, around 22 million per year. His average annual value of his salary would be around 23 for this deal. And again, some of the details are still being worked up. But what do we know about this contract? What we know is it's $1.5 million of money from this year's salary cap. So the rollover dollars that they have using salary cap money from this year to now increase how much of the cap hit long term is effective for the Packers is going to be used this year with that 1.5 million. What we also know is that it appears that there's going to be an $11 million roster bonus paid next year. You can convert that roster bonus to a signing bonus. He gets his $11 million, and you defer the cost of that bonus over the period of his contract instead of paying it all once as a cap fee, right? So it's going to be a way for them to not only create money in the short term, but in the long term to help them deal with the free agents that they have in 2021, the financial considerations that we're going to have based on the losses that NFL teams are already projecting, the fact that there's most likely going to be a drop in the cap. I still think the NFL will find ways to prevent a mass exodus of veteran players. The one thing that the NFL has been great at with their players union is really making a focus that veteran players are not affected by financials the way they allow rookies to be. You saw that with even the changes to the rookie wage level of contracts that, quarterbacks that had never played a snap in football were getting more guaranteed money than any free agents were getting. And the NFL Players Union in the last negotiations wanted to really make sure that there was a change to that. So what I think you're going to see is you're going to see Gutekunst again be very targeted in who these high-end players are on their roster and who they want to be building blocks long-term. And again, Kenny Clark was a logical 24-year-old, middle of your defense, impact guy that you had to secure. Bakhtiari is a 29-year-old left tackle that protects one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and then potentially, his future replacement that you took in the first round, right? Logical choices, right? Now, for me personally, I think Aaron Jones is as important a player as anyone because of his long-term impact on the roster as a unique player, a player that they don't really have. You see the difference when he's in the game from a playmaking ability. Nothing against Jamal Williams, nothing against really any of those players. But he is a guy that I would be focused on with whatever savings that you have left from this year, right? Again, with the salary cap number being what it is, using up your money from this year is critical, knowing that the cap is going to probably drop next year. So the Packers, to me, made a great decision. Obviously, they secured one of the best left tackles in football for 4 years, right? They paid market value. They didn't underpay to bring him back, but now they've put their flag in the sand and said, here are two players we're going to build around, right? These are two guys that are going to bookend offense and defensively, Bakhtiari and Kenny Clark. We will see if there are other moves that are made to give them more flexibility in 2021, because Brian Gutekunst said that this move does not prohibit them from making additional moves. And it actually gives them a little bit more flexibility. So I think it's really important to take what the GM said in this signing to heart, that some of this flexibility needed to happen to be able to put us in a better position for 2021. And one of those things may be playing the waiting game and saying, we're going to see what the market looks like, because it might be flooded with veteran players. It might be flooded with players that have to be cut by their respective roster. So why would I overpay right now when in March I might have the pickings, right, of multiple players that I didn't expect to be available? So again, for all the people that want to debate, right, are the Packers all in? Are they trying to win now? Are they planning for the future? Paying market rate for your left tackle is about as win now as you can get. And the Packers are absolutely aggressive with players they identify that they want as long-term solutions. And when people say, well, they don't play in free agency, you're right. They signed probably the best defensive tackle that would have made it to free agency and the best left tackle that would have made it to free agency and didn't allow them to. That is aggressive in free agency. They're just choosing to not let their best players make it to the open market where other teams can sign them. And you see it. If you look at their salary cap considerations, guys, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, David Bakhtiari, Kenny Clark, you just go down the list, guys. They have high-end impact players across the board that they have to pay a lot of money to. And when you look at that, there's a couple of things that you have to consider. Obviously, you have to hit at the bottom of your roster with your draft picks to fill in the rest of the roster when you're paying Kenny Clark roughly $17 million a year. When you're paying David Bakhtiari roughly $23 million a year. When Aaron Rodgers' salary cap number next year jumps to $36 million. I mean, if we look at salary cap totals for next year, okay, Aaron Rodgers is at $36 million as a cap hit. Zadarius Smith is at almost $21 million. Devontae Adams in the last year of his contract is around $17 million. Preston Smith is around $16 million. Adrian Amos is around 10, and this is before the Bakhtiari extension. So high-end, high-cost players, and you see if you hypothetically miss in the draft and you have to go into free agency, you see what the going rate is for players. You see, again, and Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith are a little bit unique because they kept their salary cap numbers lower and then they jump up. Those also could be salary cap numbers that are reconstructed to create salary cap room. And potentially, there could be a player that's cut. I mean, Preston Smith is a player that's absolutely under evaluation to not be a member of the 2021 Packers. But my point is when you have so much of your salary cap dollars committed at the top of your roster, you have to hit on the bottom end of your roster with your draft picks, with your undrafted free agents, and you have to be smart in free agency. And if Gutekunst is planning on lock up my A players, and then I'm going to use a potentially depressed market to fill the rest of my roster, that's actually not a bad strategy at all, especially if he's right on the players that he's paying the big money for. So, guys, that's a quick analysis of the Packers' big-time signing of David Bakhtiari, the aggressiveness of the Packers to secure Kenny Clark and David Bakhtiari should be commended by people that are fans of the Packers and should 100% give you an indication that not only can you plan for the future, but you can win now by securing your best players and not allowing them to end up on someone else's roster.